Yeah, and Paul Rosella on the line, so.
All right, well, good afternoon. We will call the Selectmen's meeting to order, May 3rd, 4 o'clock. I'm going to see if we do the mute for a second.
All participants have been muted.
Oh, good. Okay, the first item of business will be to review the minutes of April 19th.
I have some corrections. Under appointments.
What's that? Appointments?
Yes, under appointments, the paragraph below the appointees, third line, it said the selectmen also noted a few corrections, and there were corrections to the agenda, so if we could just add to the agenda. Because as you recall, on the agenda, some of these people had a different political party listed.
The what?
We could just add, after the words, a few corrections to the agenda.
To the agenda.
Right. Those were the corrections that we made because the agenda was in error. Then on page 2, under project updates, second paragraph, the goal is to add worthy items. I never used the word worthy, so if we could delete that, that's just not the way I speak. So I would just say add items to fully utilize the $400,000 construction grant. That would be great. Under the third paragraph, second sentence, Selectmen Nozel gave an overview of the funding, and I'd like to add the non-grant eligible funding, because it's not clear what we're talking about, the way this is written. So if we could just say Selectmen Nozel gave an overview of the non-grant eligible funding, that would clear that up. Then on page 3, under Tantamahawk Landing, last sentence, I think it's just maybe a clarity. It says, after further discussion, Mr. Frampton and the Selectmen agreed that the closing time, 1 hour after sunset, does not need to be changed, but that it will not be posted on any signs within the landing. And actually, we did discuss that we should leave it 1 hour after sunset, but we wouldn't necessarily have to add it to the sign. So if we could just take out, after does not, and just cross out need to be changed, but that it will.
What has to, I don't get what you're saying there.
I'm saying that we didn't say that we agree that the closing time should not be 1 hour after sunset.
I think we
did. No, Chris and I agreed that it should be 1 hour after sunset. But what we did agree to do is not add that to the posting on the signage, which was Mr. Frampton's issue.
It was clear that we're not changing the closing time, right?
No, we're keeping the closing time as we were told, what we initially talked about, 1 hour after sunset. But we weren't going to put it on any publication or signage down there.
Well, that's what it says. Agreed the closing time does not need to be changed.
But
1 hour after sunset, and it's not going to be posted on the signage.
So is that how that reads to you? That to me, the way it's written reads that we didn't agree to 1 hour after sunset. You read that to mean that we agreed to maintain it 1 hour after sunset. That's how you read it.
Well, we're going to have it to be, the closing time will officially be 1 hour after sunset, correct?
Correct.
So why is this not right?
It just reads kind of odd, because no letter is attached to this, so it's really kind of odd the way it's written. It sounds to me, when I read this, it sounds like we agreed that the closing time, 1 hour after sunset, does not need to be changed. It implies to me that we didn't agree, that we agreed to change it just like we agreed to not post it on a sign. So maybe you could break that up into 2 sentences and then we'll get a little clearer.
Well,
I
don't see why this is incorrect.
Well,
It's just unclear, it's not incorrect.
If you'd push that mic away, because it's all, so, we agree the closing time will be 1 hour after sunset, correct?
Period. Just period.
And we're also not going to put closing time on the signs.
correct.
Right.
So what's wrong with this sentence?
I think it's because the double negatives are messing up. I would just put a period after sunset and then put the selectmen agreed to not post.
It will not be posted on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think it says that. Well, you word it the way you want. Patty, I hope you understand that.
I'm just saying put a period after sunset. I don't think that's a big deal. And then the selectmen agree that will not be posted on any signs within the landing, period. That's all I got.
Okay. If we can have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved. Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Turning to the appointments, we have for the Inland Wetlands Commission as an alternate, Christopher Marchant. It would be a 3-year term to end on January of 23.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Now, I received an email today about a zoning board of appeals alternate from Nancy Hutchison, who had a conversation with the applicant and would recommend that this person be appointed. So it's not on the agenda, but we do have an application from Russell Fogg, living at 131 Whippoorwill Road, to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate. Has been with the fire department for a good long while and is on the town committee, Democratic Town Committee. Talked with Nancy, and Nancy feels he would be a good addition. So if we want to add this to the agenda, we could have a motion to add Mr. Fogg, the motion to the agenda, and then vote on it.
I make a motion to add it to the agenda.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded to add it. And then
I'll make a motion to approve it.
for a term ending November of 21. This is an elected position normally, but because it's a vacant position at the moment, we would appoint until the November election. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Very good. All right. COVID. I actually do not have a number of cases at the moment. I think we're north of 330 from the beginning of the pandemic. I think the town continues to add a few here and there, but at a fairly moderate pace. So I don't know of any particular updates. I think we're standing by for whether the governor's executive orders, which are slated to end, I think it's the 20th of May, they may completely end at that point, or they may continue, but at the moment that's when it's due to end. I think we know that there's been a liberalization of mask policy outside, and but I think the businesses and bars are able to operate at full strength. Pretty much the same in terms of going into a place of business, and restaurants, you go in with the masks, but you're able to be at your table without masks and so forth. So I think things in Connecticut are progressing fairly well, and I think our numbers are still quite admirable. Turning to project updates, Sound View. Mary Jo, do you want to lead us through that one, please?
Oh, sure. The team, the construction team was completing excavation on Hartford Avenue this week, and they'll be starting to prepare to begin excavation on Shore Road. The engineer sent me a copy of the permit from the state so we can begin construction on Shore Road. Got that today. With a few little minor glitches, the excavation went very well. I continue to be pleased with the construction firm that bid on the project. They are very professional. They're working well with the public, which is really important. We're on schedule.
Very good.
I have one question. I went down there, drove through today. It's come along, looks good, with the exception of some of them are really elevated. Have you noticed? I mean, they're higher than the grade of the house. So, are they planning on filling them? What about if there's any ponding or anything in between? I mean, there's like, but you're close to a foot or something.
Right. Yeah, the low
Why so high?
The low properties are the concern. There's a couple that are low. The sidewalk was designed to tilt 2% to the street, so runoff will
Hopefully go that way.
And then each of the properties will be graded from the back of sidewalk to the property, per the plans which are out here. So if they had a bituminous driveway, that will be added, and the grading will go up to the bituminous driveway and grade to it. If they had grass and sod, that will be used. So just what they had before will be filled in. But it is striking. Without the curbing and without the grading, it is striking. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, between the 5-foot sidewalk and the utility strip in front of the sidewalk, 2.5 feet at 7.5 feet, so that pitch brings the back of the sidewalk up. There are probably, 4 or 5 properties that are very low.
There's 2 of real concern, yeah.
And it looks pretty accentuated. When they're backfilled, it will hopefully look less so, but it is what it is.
Well,
and
yeah.
Yeah, so also you have to dip the sidewalk for the roads, the aprons and so on, so it looks a little like a roller coaster, but to get the cars in properly, it's yeah.
Yeah, each property owner, except for one, signed a temporary rights agreement, which allows then the construction firm to go on the property and even things out. And one of the low property owners did not sign that. So under state statute, we're only going to do what we absolutely have to do to allow them to get their cars in safely.
Okay, next item, the Haynes Park. 3 days after we opened the building, there was, I would call it vandalism to the building, quite regrettable. The doors, which slide on rails with wheels, were removed from the rails, and people went into the restroom and did rather unmentionable things in there. So the doors were put back with stops that would prevent the doors from being removed from the rails. But it's really quite demoralizing that we have a brand new facility for the public to enjoy, and some very bad people would really disregard the building in that fashion. I gather also at Townwoods Park, a car got in there and was driving around recklessly, tearing up stuff. So it's, we have these wonderful facilities, and it only takes a couple of bad apples to damage it and make it miserable for the rest of the people. So hopefully the people responsible will be identified and dealt with. But it's 3 days after the thing opened, and it's attacked. So too bad.
Tim, when will the cameras be operating there?
There are cameras at Town Woods. There are no cameras at Haynes Park, and I'm not sure that was part of the plan. So there well might be something put in there, but it would require some work to have a Wi-Fi and the like. And where do you put them? Because the boathouse, and I don't think the boathouse has cameras, does it? I'm not. They may focus primarily for the boathouse, but obviously it's something we can entertain. You have to probably make them very inconspicuous, because if there's a unit, that's a fairly low building, and given the nature of the people that are doing bad things, they'd probably take something and break cameras if they were visible. So, but there may be technology we can employ there, but you shouldn't have to do all this.
Right. But I think we have to look into putting some sort of camera system on.
Yeah. Well, everything's got to, this day and age.
Just a quick email with Don Bugby, and I asked him if he had called the police when he discovered that, and he said he did not.
Mm-hmm.
That concerns me.
Yeah. I think there has been some police activity, but to the extent, and it was not, I think it was during daylight hours. That's another thing that's puzzling. It was not in the deep of night. Ferry Road sidewalk. We are assembling a small committee to evaluate, to carry on with the project here. The first order of business will be to schedule appointments with the abutters and explain what the town is thinking about. We've talked several times about having a sidewalk where it is and replace the existing sidewalk. That would, of course, create damage to the trees, particularly as you get closer to Lime Street. And the other possibility is to move the sidewalk, instead of being on the north side between Lime Street and Lieutenant River Lane, have it on the south side, which would be on the Congregational Church side. So I think if we have appointments with the abutters, talk to them, get their feeling about it, and explain what we know so far, and then hopefully we can get some consensus going and proceed. Ideally, we would try to get construction to occur after Labor Day, and this wouldn't be a long job by any means, I don't think so. That'll be the next step, to have a conversation with landowners, and then probably have a public hearing as well for people who are interested that are in the area or elsewhere. The transfer station scale house, the small portable building has been brought in. It was able to be hooked up to the scale itself, so Mr. Ruddy can actually carry on with vehicles going over the scale. The old, very dilapidated structure has been removed, and we're awaiting plans as to what building will replace the old building. It'll be certainly a good deal smaller, and hopefully it can be something that is basically pre-assembled and brought to the site, as opposed to something built from scratch. So they're able to carry on in this smaller temporary facility for the moment. We will try to gather the information, because that will require some appropriation for the next stage. The temporary building, we were able to provide funds for that, but the next step will be more expensive and therefore require an additional appropriation. Swan Brook Outlet, there was a member of the Miami Beach Association who is in the business of pipes, and he went in and looked at the pipe and found that the blockage seems to be on the Long Island Sound side of the access point. So there is sand that comes into one of the pipes, the west pipe, that is blocking it, and then it looks like some vegetation when you look down the manhole. It's hard to tell just where things are, because it's probably 150 feet long from the manhole to Long Island Sound, so you're not sure how big the blockage is. Reportedly, there might be some kind of a stone in there that's complicating things, and it might be, it can't be any bigger than 3 feet, but if it's a fairly large rock, why it could, because if debris comes down the pipe and is stopped by this rock, why it might cause blockage from the water, from the land side. So we're trying to get an idea of what would be required to evacuate the sand and whatever else is in there, and we're also still trying to figure out the responsibility for the pipe. The pipe was probably put in during the 1940s. There's a little bit of information in the file that the town was talking with the Army Corps of Engineers about this, and so the town has also maintained the pipe over the years, particularly the wood. We call it a crib, but it's a at the end of the pipes there's two parallel walls that go into Long Island Sound, so the water can exit the pipe and flow out without accumulating too much sand. Unfortunately, the crib is oriented on basically a north-south, slightly south basis, and so it does collect sand and might actually contribute to blocking the pipe, the way that winds and so forth work during the summer. So we'll get more on this, but I think the first stage would be to try to open up the flow, and then from there settle on a plan and see how we might fund it. There could be funds from the town, the beaches, and there might even be some infrastructure money, who knows, or steep money. We haven't gotten to that point, but the crib at the end, being that it's made of wood, even though it's a pretty rugged crib, over the years the wave action takes its toll, and right now it's pretty dilapidated. So one solution might be just to what we do in short term will be dependent upon what the longer term plan is, because if if the pipe were to stay where it is, we could create a sheet pile type of metal crib, and the end of it might curve around from the west to the east to block the flow of sand into the crib. But if there's going to be some other design, it would be, say, on the border of Miami Beach and Hawks Nest. That might, if you change locations like that, that would require a DEP permit, and that's a much more complicated and long, drawn-out process. So we haven't really come up with the final solution yet, and it's all, of course, dependent upon financing as well.
Well, it depends on who owns it. I think it's a large portion of it first.
It may be more as to who installed it.
Well, either way, we got to figure out that first. Who's financially responsible for this?
Yeah. Well, the records that I've seen don't specifically talk about the 36-inch pipes. They talk about what's in front of them. But it looks as if back then the town may have put the pipes in. And
Maybe we can have an attorney read it.
Hmm?
Maybe we can have an attorney read it to figure out who owns it or who's responsible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's set precedent.
And I think actually there was a Selectman Tooker that was involved.
Probably was.
So we need more research on this because, cleaning the pipe out would be one thing, but creating a more permanent solution would be a different, more expensive proposition.
So Tim, how are these decisions going to be made? Because it sounds like, unlike what happened at White Sands Beach with the pump that I guess we paid for under the current budget, the repair that we weren't asked for up front. I'm concerned about precedent, and I'd like to know how you are planning.
I think we have to, as Chris was saying, we have to determine, I suppose, from a legal standpoint, who's responsible for it. If it was installed by the town and maintained by the town, sounds like it's a town asset. Unfortunately, if the town helps out a beach association, and then it becomes responsible for it, you have to think twice about, I guess, if you're going to help people. The Hawks Nest Beach Club Association, I think they bought that beach in the 70s, so they're saying, well, they're a relatively small group anyway, so if you were to say you should be a contributor, they don't have a lot of resources even if they wanted to. Miami has obviously its own needs, and so I think that's the first thing. If it's something which is pretty much the town's responsibility, then I think we would have full say as to what is done. Because when we were down there were ideas about different possible ways to deal with it. And so if it becomes a town obligation, then I would say the town would have pretty much rights to say what happens. And I think, well, the engineer indicated if it is if a permit is required from the DEP, that's probably a 2-year process right there. Hard to believe, but so it's not going to happen immediately. If we stay with what we have, you can essentially stay within the footprint, and it's a certificate of permission, a COP, and that is more administrative and easy to do. So I think we probably need to have someone research the records to let us know what they think in terms of who owns it, who's responsible for it.
I think the other part of my precedent concern is, this board approved moving forward with the Grassy Hill Bridge town responsibility, and that fell off the table. So how are we identifying which projects we are going to fund? I'm very concerned about what we're taking on as something we want to fix and something we don't want to fix.
Well, there's two things. The crib, the wooden crib, is in bad disrepair, and it creates a liability just because there's rough edges and metal and so forth. That's, if kids play on it and so forth, there could be something could happen. So that's number one. And then I think it gets back to clearly identifying who's responsible. I said to the beaches, I said, well, we're sort of in this together, and there was some reception of that, but it wasn't like, okay, we'll all chip in. So I think if it gets to be a more major expense, then I think we're going to see less participation voluntarily. And so probably first is to really identify who's the responsible party.
I think that's the most important first step.
Yeah.
Who's responsible and who's liable. I'd hate to see anybody injured down there, but if it's not the town's property, it's not going to be our liability.
Well,
if we start working on it, it does become our liability. So I think the first step before you look at any more plans, doing anything more, let's figure out who owns it.
Yep.
Even if we have to spend a few $100 on attorney's fees for a title search and whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's
Record.
We're going to have to know this before we do anything.
Yeah. Well, so, and then there's also timing of activity with the pipe and so forth. It's the preferred time would be to free up the pipe before Memorial Day, but we'll just have to take this in sequence and not rush into it.
That's not going to happen before Memorial Day.
No, I don't think so, but once it's warm weather and people are on the beach, then it's time to get some answers. So we can ask council to give us an opinion if possible. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I don't know that there's any written agreements about the town would put it in, but it's for the benefit of Miami Beach or anybody else.
Maybe trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
In the meantime.
That has to be first.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, the audit, if there's a risk to safety of anyone swimming in that area that might climb on that, somebody should rope it off.
Yeah, well, it's you could rope it off, but it's in the water too, so you could do that. But I think first up, as Chris is saying, is to get a clear idea as to who owns it or is responsible for it, and then move from there. But I think we have some pretty good ideas so far, so I think this would be a good next step. All right, then the next item is the Sound View, the summer preparations, and Frank Papalardo has been working hard on this. There are a couple of things that are related to this. First off, we have just the general, the beach. Why don't we just do that first? Frank, we could talk about the conversation the committee.
I bring up the subjects of our meetings.
Okay, yes. Okay. You want to lead us through this, Frank?
Sure. Over the last several weeks, myself, Tim Griswold, Trooper Weber, several of the other municipal officers, Paul Rizal, have been meeting to kind of work up the program for this summer, trying to keep everybody on the same page. So we went through a variety of things. We talked about the town parking lot, first of all. We came up with the following thoughts, obviously for everybody's consideration. The lot would be open from 9 a.m. and closed at 8 p.m. Presently it's closed at 6:30. We'd open until 8 so we can allow some businesses to get some business traffic. A ranger and or officer would be on duty at all times when the lot is open. The parking fees are charged from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the town lot, so it gives everybody kind of a half-hour grace period. There's a new gate on Portland Avenue.
Frank, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Did you say 7 a.m.? Because this says 9 a.m.
9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
You.
A gate on Portland Avenue is going to be fixed for exit only, right turn, and the rangers are going to monitor that. So if they're unable to monitor that gate, the gate will be closed and everybody will enter and exit on the Harvard Avenue side. The town lot configuration will remain the same. 3 30-minute business spaces, 7 spaces reserved for beach permits, 2 handicap, and those are paid spaces. These remaining 71 paid spaces. Possible reserved spaces to be purchased by the pavilion and or Kokomo's. And Tim was going to investigate that earlier because at one point in time last year, Kokomo's and the pavilion had asked for purchasing some spaces in the town lot for their reserved use. So that would be based on a cost basis. I think Tim did the analysis, figured a parking space presently is worth $1,000 a year to the town. So I was going to talk with the Kokomo's and the pavilion to see if there's any interest in that. Vehicles with beach parking permits will be guided to use the reserved beach permit spaces in the lot first. And when those spaces are filled, they can use any open paid space. The street, 15 paid spaces, plus 8 30-minute business spaces. Those are open spaces that are not reserved for any specific business. The 30-minute business spaces apparently in the past years have been some concern regarding whether they're paid. People are parking there and not getting tickets, and then getting parking tickets and so on and so forth. So we thought we would further identify the spaces with a larger painting on the pipe pavement that says 30-minute space, and also paint the curbs yellow. That was Trooper Weber's suggestion. There are 2 15-minute business spaces that are reserved and monitored for the carousel shop. Those spaces are right in front of the carousel shop. There's been some confusion about that. But those spaces are actually their driveway cut. So when we reconfigured the southern part of Harvard Avenue, there were 2 spaces that were going to be eliminated for the carousel driveway cut. And they agreed with everybody that they would allow us to put 2 spaces in there for the reserve for the specific use rather than losing spaces on the street. So they monitor those spaces themselves. Parking fees on the street would be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Frank, why would the parking on the street be cut off at 6, unlike the town lot?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Why are the parking fees on the street cutting off at 6 p.m. versus 7:30 p.m. on the lot?
I guess the thought was just to allow some more flexibility for business parking on the street and
Well, what one can park after 6 p.m. is just you don't have to pay.
Yeah, they can park, yeah.
I understand that. I was just wondering, basically the town's losing an hour and a half of income, and I was just wondering what the thought was on that.
Well, I'll kind of get to that farther down here because we accommodated the income issue a little bit later down on the list here. So vehicles with beach permits can use any paid space on this street regardless, without regard to the reserved spaces in the lot. 2 spaces on space 145 and 146 will be reconfigured for golf cart parking. Once again, subject to the approval of the golf cart regulations of this Selectmen. And we think we can take those 2 spaces and make them either 4 or 5 golf cart spaces. And those will be reserved for golf carts and paid. So we actually are going to increase some parking on the street paid spaces. So on the street, for fees, we have gone up for a number of years on the fees. So the suggestion we go 50 cents per hour. The current fees are $5 per 2-hour block of time, and we would suggest increasing to $6 per 2-hour block. We had a discussion regarding the weekend and holiday fees of $7 per 2-hour block, suggested to increase to $8, but subsequent to that, there was some email discussions amongst everybody, and we thought because the weekends are the heaviest used, they consume the most amount of town resources, particularly the beach and our public. We thought maybe it would be a good idea to increase the weekend and holiday rates from $7 to $9 per 2-hour block. And that certainly gives us some significant additional revenue to cover those resources consumed. Town lot and private permanent lots will be open to full capacity. Beach capacity, beach capacity. Beach open from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Beach capacity for the Hartford Avenue side of Soundview and the Miami Beach would be 570 persons. The entry to would be by Hartford Avenue for the general public and Miami Beach residents. Capacity count by the Rangers and the PD. Entry for Miami Beach residents only would be at the west end of Pond Road with the capacity count by Miami Beach representative. So if you're going to go on the portion of the beach that's Hartford Avenue or Miami Beach, you would enter through the Hartford Avenue and be counted by the Rangers. And if you're Miami Beach, you can go into the west end and enter that way and be counted by the Miami Beach representative. Capacity on the Swan Avenue side would be 30, and that would be for the general public, and capacity count once again by Rangers and PD. Lot B11 on Pond Road, it is a deeded public thoroughfare, but will be closed this year for a more accurate and efficient capacity count. Private beaches at Kokomo's and Pavilion, in accordance with town and state capacity and distancing regulations, would be their responsibility to monitor as appropriate. Traffic and beach capacity closures. The gates at Swan and Portland Avenues will be closed on high traffic days. Entry to Soundview will be via Hartford Avenue. When beach reaches capacity, signage will be placed at Hartford Avenue and Shore Road and at Hartford Avenue and Bocce, and read something like beach at capacity closed, business and resident traffic only. Private parking lot owners will be instructed that to avoid confusion, it would be prudent that they notify their customers when the beach is at capacity and closed. Signage. We reviewed the signs, particularly down the parking lot, for conflicting information, outdated information, and for sign pollution. We have a lot of signs down there. So we actually took a walk around. So we'd like to make some changes to the large beach rule signs. We see the large beach rule signs. We'll make some changes to those. And we're going to add beach open from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Stand-up paddleboards, SUPs are prohibited, and 5-quart cooler capacity. By doing that, we can remove some of those hanging signs that are beneath it, so we can kind of clean that up a little bit. So we're going to take the lower portion of the large beach sign and just make a sign to go over that and screw it right into that, so we can cover that up. As far as the parking lot is concerned, we can combine a lot of information onto single signs. We can place them a little bit more strategically, kind of ad hoc where the signs have been plugged in and post on the fences. And by doing that, we can remove some extraneous signage, kind of clean things up. I'd like to make all the signage similar in color and style to the Soundview color palette and letter type that's already existing down there, so we don't have red and white and blue and green and so on and so forth. And more information on signs will be coming once we get it. I took a bunch of pictures and we're going to get together with Matt and decide which signs we can combine. Kiosk decals need to be replaced with some updated information. We did talk about the golf cart rules and regulations to be submitted to the Selectmen. And then some other information, parking lots at the Pavilion at Kokomo's to be lined and car stops in accordance with their capacity site plans on file with the town. Once again, both of those properties have site plans that call out a specific number of cars in the parking lot. Right now they're not lined, and their car stops are kind of all over the place. So if they would fix their car stops and line it, that would give the police and our rangers a little bit better indication of whether there's over parking going on. And Pavilion to be reminded that there is not to be any alcohol served on town property, i.e. the 10-foot alleyway that runs between the Pavilion properties. And I spoke with Brian Cleary at Kokomo's and Stephanie Liberci at the Pavilion on April 28th about both of these items, and they both agreed to comply. So that's kind of like the rundown of our last 4 or 5 meetings. So a lot going on there. But hopefully, if we all agree on the items here, we can, kind of codify them, and so that there's no confusion or misunderstanding. In previous years, there's been some misunderstanding regarding where beach permit passes are acceptable, not acceptable, what time things open and close, when cars get towed, when cars get ticketed, and so on and so forth. So I think we've had a lot of very, very good, fruitful meetings, taking our field trips down there, walked the site on a number of occasions. So Tim's been involved in all of those meetings along with Trooper Weber, and they've kind of driving the bus on this and making sure that we all got this thing under control this summer. So.
I think it's worth repeating that the town lot and the private permitted lots will be able to operate at full capacity. Last year we were at 50%, but I think as the restrictions are become less and less, it creates a lot of ill will. In the event that Soundview is overcrowded, as Frank mentioned, the gates can be closed and signage put up. And the idea would be that while the beach is full, the businesses and restaurants are open. So it's an effort to help the trade there, because people can still come down and park and do other things and go on to the beach.
So with your approval, and I guess the next piece of the puzzle is our police have to calibrate the parking meters, the kiosks, and we have to establish the proper signage regarding rates and fees. So the two things that we would need to, I guess, the selectmen to decide as quickly as possible, and that is the rate increase. Right now, it's suggested it's 50 cents an hour Monday through Friday, which brings it from $5 for a 2-hour block to $6 for a 2-hour block. And the suggestion was to go $1 an hour on the weekends and holidays, which would bring it from a $7 per 2-hour block to $9 per 2-hour block. Both of those items, if we can get approval on that, we can at least get the signage in place. We only have 3 weeks to get all of this done and printed and outlined. So Joe Riley, our ranger, captain, or whatever we call him, he's working with the kiosk company to reprogram the kiosks. Matt believes that we have the parking lot open Wednesday or Thursday before Memorial Weekend. So we'd like to get all of this stuff in place before that.
Frank, I'm still not clear how the decision went with closing the street parking to the kiosk at 6 versus parking in the lot at 7:30.
Just give the businesses a little bit more flexibility is what it boils down to. We're upping the price on the parking fees. We're increasing the amount of time that the parking fees are being charged in the town lot. But to give the business a little bit more flexibility on the street, we thought 6 o'clock would be an appropriate ending point. That's where it has been in the past traditionally.
Okay, so it's to allow more people to come down at the dinner hour.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems reasonable. And did we ask the businesses about that? Did
We
we
haven't
poll
seen
them?
anybody down there, but
Well-
there's no change in that. That's actually no change to the situation.
I was just wondering if you even reached out to them to see how they're feeling with this.
Well, that part is a no change. So that's what's been traditionally, that's what historically has been the case. So we thought that, last year we closed the parking lot at 6:30. This year we're going to give it another hour and a half, and we're going to open until 8 o'clock, 2.5 hours or whatever, hour and a half, and increase the amount of the pay time. So we're kind of balancing one against the other, increasing the charges, the fees. Hopefully will offset the extra costs. Well, we believe it will offset the extra costs for the rangers and the police to be on duty at all times when the parking lot is open. That's been an issue in previous years. Previous years, the parking lot stayed open until 9 o'clock, but the rangers went off duty around 5 or 6, and we didn't have a lot of police coverage down there for that, 6 to 9 period, 9 o'clock period, and that's when some shenanigans occurred. So, Trooper Weber was pretty clear. I would say crystal clear that he would not like to see the parking lot open unless there was police and ranger coverage there. And I think we all agree that would be a wise move from our standpoint, from a town standpoint. So, and to do that, fee increases and increase the amount of time it's paid, we can offset our extra costs.
Okay, if that makes up for that additional services, if that increase covers us for all those additional police presence, that's great.
On a percentage basis, it looks like it will.
Okay.
We'll have a better indication come midsummer, but right now, Tim and I, we kind of read through the numbers quickly at several meetings, and it looks like that will cover it. And with Matt, obviously, and it looks like that will cover the cost.
Weather plays a factor too.
Obviously.
Yeah.
A couple other things. I've been unclear on this for about 5 years, whether Town of Old Lyme residents are able to access Miami Beach.
Okay, well, there's a good question. It's a court matter that's been bouncing around since 1953. The latest Miami Beach ruling was put out last year, in that the judge stated that the Miami Beach, regardless of whether it's Miami Beach residents or anybody, can be used by anyone because of the caveat that says it's open to the unorganized public. So last year and this year so far, the Miami Beach is open to the unorganized public. That means Miami Beach, town residents, and anybody can access it. So the 570 is not exclusive to town residents or Miami Beach residents. It's 570 people, period, regardless of where they come from.
And the court was very emphatic to say that Miami Beach residents would not have a priority. They couldn't save space on the beach for their, they could have somebody sitting down there and say some people, but they can't just say we're going to cordon off 200 spots for the Miami people. So it's very monitored, if you will, in terms of how this unfolds.
Now that court decision was appealed the end of last year, and it was heard in January of this year by a 3-judge panel. And supposedly the appeal ruling was supposed to be out within 90 days. It still hasn't been put forth. Yeah, we'll find out probably at some point in time. The fence that Miami Beach put up was allowed to stay last year until the appeal was heard and decided upon. But they could not, Miami Beach could not make any
Correct.
charge or do anything regarding their portion of the beach. So that's why last year, once again, we had this capacity ruling, but our police and rangers fixed the capacity along with public safety people, and that included the combination of two. Now this year, if the court rules that the initial decision will be upheld, then Miami Beach will be mandated to remove that fence they put up. Quite frankly, no one quite knows where it's going to go. It's kind of flip-flop back and forth over the course of the years. But there's been several lawsuits. I think the first one was in 1953, and you'd have to go back and research it, but there are a number of lawsuits. The last court decision that was made a year ago was pretty emphatic, as Tim said, that Miami Beach cannot reserve any spaces for their people. It's open to the unorganized public, period. And we'll find out whether that appeal has been upheld or denied soon.
That's helpful, thank you. But for this year, B11, the entrance on Pond, is closed, but under other years, could Town of Old Lyme residents enter by B11?
Well, B11, in my understanding and from the historical information we've obtained, it is a deeded public thoroughfare. Now this year, because of the capacity issues and public safety issues, Lot B11 would be blocked off so that so we can easily count. As Tim put it, it's kind of porous, entry onto the beach is kind of porous, so we're trying to, we're trying to establish some access points.
Okay.
What happens, in the future in terms of capacity? We've had this discussion on a number of occasions. I was just talking to Dave Roberge not long ago about just simple capacity limitations for the beach. We just can't, under normal circumstances, we just can't allow as many people onto the beach as possible because they're sitting on top of each other. It's an unsafe situation. There has to be some sort of capacity limitations as to how many people can be on that beach safely from any standpoint. So 570 is based on some rulings that Dave Roberge is established and Matt Weber established from a public safety standpoint, but at some point we may want to establish a different criteria. I don't know what that would be.
And then in your under other, you talked about reminding the pavilion they couldn't serve alcohol on the town property. Are they serving alcohol on their property this year?
I believe and I'd have to go back and research this, but last I read that the waiver for expanded alcohol service for restaurants, like putting them on the
Sidewalk.
patios and sidewalks, is going to be extended until the end of summer, which allows the pavilion to serve on their patio and the beach in front of them. And last year they did a pretty respectable job in controlling that. But they have two sections of property. They have the property that's standing right in front of the pavilion, and then they have the property just to the west of the pavilion. But between those two properties is the town-owned alleyway, that 10-foot right-of-way that goes straight down to the water. So we want to make sure that they don't serve or deal with liquor on that 10-foot alleyway in any way, shape, or form. So I did talk to Tim reminded me of that, and I talked to Stephanie about that, and she said, no problem, I understand, she'll take care of it.
Okay.
How she's going to take care of that, I don't know, we'll just let us see.
Okay. And my last question is really to Tim. I brought this up a couple meetings about what we're going to charge the private parking lot owners this year. And we haven't discussed that. I know that's not really your domain, but it's mentioned here, and I just think if we're going to be raising fees, maybe we consider both issues at the same time.
Well, personally, I think these guys had a couple of pretty tough years. Raising private parking lot fees this year is the right thing to do for them, but So that's your decision. I do have a question. Didn't I read somewhere that parking is taxable, sales tax?
Yeah,
Okay, does that include the town parking lot?
yes.
It is. So the private parking lots have to charge sales tax on parking, and the town has to charge.
Well, I don't know, I guess we increased the fee for the parking passes that the residents have purchased. In terms of, I guess we'd have to take the gross receipts and work out a formula for receipts for parking through the kiosk thing.
We just added on to the fee. The fee.
We'd have to probably think that through.
Well,
I
is
don't
it 6.35%? Is it the full sales use
I
tax?
think so.
And they only work on a debit card?
I suppose if you got specific and you said it's $9 and then there's a tax on top of the $9, so it's $9.83, I suppose it doesn't matter how you pay for it. I don't know, we'd have to see whether they have the ability to do something like that or whether the price would encompass the tax.
I think that if you, at minimum, when you do send out the permit things for the private parking lots, you might want to remind them that they'll need a tax permit, and they'll have to charge sales tax. I think that just would be the appropriate thing. Some of these people may not be aware of that. But make sure everything's, playing on a level playing field.
Yeah.
I don't think what happened last year, what's going on this year, I don't think we should up their fees for the parking lots this year. But maybe next year, definitely. But
Yeah.
I mean, they had a pretty tough summer last year, and this summer, who knows what it's going to be. So
I just like to see it laid out. I'd like to have it on the agenda. I'd like to know what they were paying and how long it is that they've been at that rate. I'd like to have a discussion with finance to verify the tax issues. But I just think that makes good fiscal sense.
So they pay $20 per spot now, I believe. I think that's what it is, $20 per spot. All in all, it doesn't amount to a couple $100 to the town in terms of increased revenue. Really, what it boils down to.
Well, I just think we need a discussion on it. That those folks coming down also hit the beaches and also require the town to expend services and clean up and everything. I don't know last year how well they monitored things. I mean, last year was kind of a enigma, but I don't know how long it's been. We've been at 20. I think it's been a while. So if our costs are going up down there, I think they should share in that.
Well, that's certainly your decision to make. Right now, I just want to know what we're going to charge our fees, how we're going to establish those, so I can make the signs up. So,
Yeah.
Do we agree that we'll go 50 cents an hour on weekdays and $1 an hour $1 an hour on weekends and holidays? Is that sound reasonable to everybody?
That's
sounds fine by me.
a 6 and 9.
That's 6 and 9, yeah.
Did we take the tax into account when we put the 50% on the 50 cents increase? Did we consider the tax?
Well, we didn't. It would reduce the revenue source by 6.35%, which all in all, I mean, we're increasing by roughly 20%. So that's going to give us an increase of 11.5%, essentially, which if you take a $1,000 space and now you increase it, you can make just for ease of arithmetic, saying, okay, we're going to increase it by roughly 10%, and that's now going to be a space that's worth $1,100. We had roughly 70, we have roughly 80 spaces, so we have 80, another $8,000 or $9,000 revenue, even if we did include the the sales tax and the rate increase. And Matt, thought that our increase in cost for the rangers and the police was somewhere around $6,000 to $8,000. So, if I recall correctly, so even at the lowest end, we would be able to cover the increase in rangers. To jump in there, Tim, if
I would just like to talk to Nicole or the finance on this, because I don't know if there's extra bookkeeping on their end. I mean, I just don't know.
The kiosks is a pretty simple thing. It's just a matter, we just establish what the fee is for whatever block of time, and we can establish it at, $5 plus 6.3% tax, as long as we identify that that's what it is on the sticker. We can do that. We can identify it as whatever number we want to identify it as, and then the purchaser can buy as many blocks of time as they want. So if it's $5 or $6 plus 6.35% tax, whatever that totals up to be, quick in your head, finance people, then it would be that amount for 2-hour block on a weekday. So the kiosk can be established, and with that, then we can easily back that out in order to pay the proper sales tax.
Well, I think what Mary Jo is saying, if I'm correct, will the kiosk system, will they be paying the 6.3 side, in that, or is Nicole going to have to cut a check to the state every month or quarterly for all the tax?
Well, the money comes to the town, Chris.
Yeah, I know the money comes to the town in a roundabout way. Doesn't our kiosk system?
I don't know. We'd have to ask. We'd have to ask whether kiosk could remit on behalf of the town to the state, but
No.
do.
We're gonna have to remit all of it.
So we get the gross, and then we'll have to cut it out.
Yeah.
So that's more work for you.
Oh.
We didn't choose to charge tax. That wasn't our choice. So
Yeah.
it's not. I think if we charge $6.82, whatever it happens to be, and $6.82 to just plug in the card, and it is what it is. From a simple standpoint, we can just figure how many blocks of time it is and take it from there, or we can just do a deduction of 6.35% or whatever the actual number is to back it out and pay the sales tax on it. But either way, it's a matter of how we collect the revenue. It comes to the town, the town has to cut the check to the state. So I would be inclined to say, okay, our rate is $6 per 2-hour block on weekdays plus the tax, whatever that happens to be. Our rate is $9 for a 2-hour block on weekends plus the tax.
You could do that.
That's going to be too difficult. We just find a number that's a round number that, maybe it's $6.50. Or maybe it's $9 or $10.
Well, it would probably, if it's a tax, at least it's not as if the town is increasing the price yet higher.
Right. So.
Right.
We could find out from the vendor, because that would be, if they could send us the sum that's already broken down to 6.35 is identified amount, and then the rest of it's parking, then it simplifies it.
Yeah. Either way, the revenue comes to the town, and the town ends up paying the tax.
Yeah.
But if we can if we can at least agree on the price of 6 and 9, then we can say $6 plus tax, $9 plus tax, and at least we could get the science paid.
I don't have any problem with that.
That's the one thing that we did.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. Personally.
Okay, well, maybe, I guess we have, in general, are the selectmen comfortable with the revisions as Frank's discussed them, and specifically we can ask for a motion to endorse increasing the weekday price from $5 to $6 plus tax, and on holidays and weekends from $7 to $9 plus tax.
I'll make a motion to accept this and increase our rates.
Pardon?
I'll make a motion we accept, everything that's right in front of
Yep.
here, our new thing, and increasing the rates.
Okay.
Noted.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion on it?
I ask ask that we consider the permitted lots soon.
The what?
The permitted lots need to be discussed soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so on that matter, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, do you want to talk about the golf cart?
Sure.
I think I've got a package on that myself.
Yeah, I did. I printed up some packages.
Ooh.
So everybody has them.
The thick one. So,
So, I think I emailed a copy of this to all the selectmen last week. So over the course of the last 6-8 months, Paul Barzell has been working with the resident trooper, and the last several months, Tim and I have been brought in to work in regarding the use of golf carts. We discussed this in the Soundview Commission last year, and wanted to put together a program that made sense. And so this is what we came up with. Paul has been working with Trooper Weber to make sure that everything would be consistent and acceptable on his end, which is really the public safety part of it is rather important. And then Tim and I wanted the last couple of months to kind of work on the refinements. So first item here is establishment of your authority as the Board of Selectmen to put this program into place. The state of Connecticut allows the local traffic authority to establish use of golf carts on town roads that have a speed limit of less than 25 miles per hour. So with that authority, we've outlined a number of ideas and conditions. Most of this was peeled off of other towns that have existing regulations, so that we decided there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. If somebody's got it and it works, we've been looking at it and kind of figuring out which pieces of the puzzle work. So the first part is golf cart regulations in the Sound jurisdiction area. The town roads in the Sound jurisdiction are Hartford Avenue Extension, Portland Avenue Extension, Swan Avenue Extension, Bocce, Martino. North Lane is that road that runs along parallel to the railroad tracks. You know that name. Cottage Lane and Soundview Avenue, also known as Old Colony Beach, and Pond Road from Hartford Avenue to Portland. So that's the Sound jurisdiction. Those are the areas that have the low speed limits. So it establishes the Selectmen's authority to put together a program to allow golf carts to be used in those areas. Once again, the conditions were pretty similar to what state statute are. We added a couple of new ones, which we'll go into later on, but most everything here is according to state statute. And the operation must be a valid motor vehicle license operator. They have to obey all the traffic regulations, driving on the right side of the road, turn signals, speed, cell phone use, obey traffic laws. Must be a licensed driver. Alcohol and drug use, of course, is prohibited. We looked at what fees were around. We discussed a variety of fees in the Soundview Commission. We certainly don't want to make it prohibitive, but we also want to make it so that it's got some teeth in it. So our suggestion would be a $50 registration fee per year. We'll start with this year as being $50, and then a separate fee will be assessed for the issuance of a registration plate safety flag. Violations of this public act, subsequent to laws and conditions set forth by the Connecticut State Statute, Section 14-300, so on and so forth, will be essentially vigorously enforced by the police services. So the next package here is the golf cart rules for Soundview. Now, I'll explain why we did this in two different packages. Number one is the first that establishes your authority as the traffic authority in the town of line. This allows you to if other areas in the town are well aligned, you can already establish your ability to do that. So this establishes you, allows you to let this occur elsewhere if so desired. So if Rogers Lake wants to do it, you already have established authority. They could develop their own set of rules. If Hawks Nest wants to do it, you already established authority. They could develop their own set of rules. So the next part of the rules that we came up with for the Soundview area. Let's see, golf cart, it's for golf carts only, and that's golf cart would be something that speeds up to 20 miles an hour in an unmodified state. No recreational vehicles, Polaris or similar, road vehicle, ATVs, UTVs, etc., are allowed. It's a responsibility of the golf cart owner to conform with all pertinent laws. Registration would be annual. Annually will be the proof of liability, and once again, the golf carts would have to be registered on an annual basis. The inspection would occur by the police department, and they would inspect all of the following items: locking brakes, main power switch. And some of these are standard equipment on golf carts. Some of these are add-ons on golf carts. But we did check to make sure that all of these items can be put on a golf cart, either new or can be retrofitted onto existing golf carts. Once again, we established that it's a motor vehicle and you have to have a license to drive it, no learner's permits. Golf cart owners are going to be held in fully responsible for any damages caused. There is some release of liability for the town of Old Lyme and the Soundview Commission. No towing of any objects. Golf carts must adhere to all parking regulations set forth by the town of Old Lyme. That's important because if they're going to park in a paid parking space, they're going to pay for that parking space, or they have a beach hangar, beach permit. Once again, we added a couple of extra spaces down the end of Hartford Avenue, space 146 and 145, which we just described in the previous conversation. We can add a couple of extra golf cart paid spaces. So that's kind of important. So actually, allowing some additional spaces for golf carts. It's non-transferable. It's only for the Soundview jurisdiction. And now this becomes a kind of important piece here. And access to the Soundview jurisdiction roads from adjacent beach communities must be through one of two locations. So if you're coming from Miami Beach, and you access Soundview by Pond Road. If you're coming from Old Colony, you access Soundview by Harton Place. So the only two places that you can access Soundview. In other words, they can't go up on Route 156 and start driving down Route 156 in order to get to Soundview. So, which is one of the concerns everybody has. And driving on the beach is strictly prohibited. We already have regulation that says no motor vehicles on the beach. We want to make sure that was clear. Then we come up with the registration form. We put this in two different portions. Registration form has got, and actually I printed them up here in duplicate just to see, what would be easy, what we could do. It's printed here. So the first part discusses the type of vehicle it is, the color, owner, and so on and so forth, and the payment of fees, the pennant, the plate, release of hold harmless for the liability, and insurance, what has to be proven, and a receipt for inspection. The second part of the form is the actual inspection for the police or rangers, whoever will be doing the inspection. Once again, we reviewed all of this with Trooper Weber, make sure everybody was comfortable, and also I think Officer Solari and Collins were in on that conversation too, because they had some input onto it. So all of these items would be required. So the way it would work is that the person would fill out the forms, the registration form would go to the police department to get an inspection done, and then would return to a Soundview Commission member or designee, and the Soundview Commission member would be in charge of maintaining the master list, would issue the license plate, collect the funds, maintain a master list, and transmit that master list to the police department and any other town agency that would desire it on an updated basis. This is a suggested license plate. Be about that size, actually. I don't know if that's the right one. Oh, it'd be this size here. A little lighter gauge, but that would be the size. And once again, it would be just kind of did this rather rapidly to come up with a design. Everybody seems to like it. Soundview Beach, town emblem, America's first public beach, established 1892, and then we would just number them 001 through whatever. Once again, it'd be a aluminum plate, and be kind of that beige sand colored with the blue printing on it. Once again, trying to keep consistency and color palette and type style for signage on the beach. And then we would add to that a pennant, which would be required from a safety standpoint. So all Soundview registered vehicles have to have a pennant. It's a minimum of 72 inches from the ground level up. So we chose a kind of a blue pennant with a reflective stripe in it. So the cost for the plate and the pennant would be over and above the $50 registration fee. So once again, we've been working on this for the...
It says 2 at $10.54. Is that?
That was just a picture to show a picture. That was just to get the picture. Paul's actually working on figuring how much the actual pennant would be. The plates, I think, are going to be between $15 and $20, depending on how many we order. I got a quote from Quality Nameplate in Glastonbury, Connecticut. So they were willing to put these together in a small run for us. And the pennants, I don't know where Paul is getting them. He's got several different sources he's looking at. So what we need to do is probably get maybe 10 or 15 plates up front ordered, maybe 10 or 15.
Do you have an idea of the demand? I mean, that sounds a little skinny.
I don't think we're going to have a tremendous demand right now, this first year. I think it may increase, but I've been asked this question on several occasions. People, I love this. Old Colony wants to know if they can use their permit in Soundview, and the answer is obviously no. Soundview is a town road. Soundview, we have to have, town of Irvine needs to have their own registration form, their own collective payment, and their own license plate. So if somebody from Old Colony or Hawks Nest or Miami has a golf cart there, they will have to conform with the town of Irvine regulations and get a town of Irvine registration. But we can order as many as we want. Just at some point in time, we're going to need to upfront some funds for this, and I don't want to order too many.
No.
We're just going to stuck with them. We'll get a pretty good indication within the first 2 or 3 weeks of whether this is something that's going to fly off the shelf on day one, or whether it's going to be, take a while to ramp up.
Because can people get through Miami or Old Colony the further away? Can they traverse from, say, Old Lyme Shores through Old Colony to get into Soundview, or is there a barrier to getting into Old Colony?
I don't know if Old Lyme Shores. Now, the only other thing that could happen, and it would have to be something, I believe North Road runs almost the entire length of the railroad tracks up there, and I have to look at a map. It's possible that if you wanted to increase this to Old Lyme Shores, they could cross Route 156, because we did discuss crossing Route 156 is acceptable. You can't drive on it. Mm-hmm. They could cross Route 156, drive up the North Road, drive North Road down to one of the Swan, Portland, Hartford extensions, and then come across that way back into Soundview. Mm-hmm. But that would take a little bit more exploration. We can add to this at that point in time. But I wanted to make sure that it was real clear that at least the two adjacent beach associations that presently have golf carts, that they can't be driving up and down Route 156 to get to Soundview. They have to actually go through the two fixed points to get in there. And we kind of chose those two fixed points because they're down close to the water. It's where the police and the rangers typically are, so they would have a better chance of monitoring, entry and exit to the Soundview area.
That might argue against having people come down from the north.
Pardon me?
That might argue against having, say, for instance, Old Lyme Shores come down from the north.
I don't think the Old Lyme Shores can connect up to Old Colony. So if we want to get Old Lyme Shores in there, I have no problem with that at all. I don't think anybody does. Even Hawks Nest. Hawks Nest right now, I don't believe can cross into Miami with the golf cart. They would have to somehow or other get north of Route 156 access. I don't think they can, but Old Lyme Shores possibly can.
Well, maybe near Teddy's or something, but
they could access that north road and then come down that way.
okay.
Big issue is just keeping them off of Route 156. That's the big issue. And we can amend the access points as time goes by, and as obviously we think we've covered most of the bases, but I think from a legal standpoint, and from a logistical standpoint, I think that between Paul, who's done a lot of research, and I would say Old Sabre, Clinton, and area towns in Connecticut he's been looking at. He's also been looking at Florida, which has a lot of these types of programs in place. So he's spent a lot of time researching different things that have worked and haven't worked. So and Trooper Weber's been working right alongside with him. So and of course Tim and myself. So the Soundview Commission did unanimously vote to forward this to the Selectmen, and so here I am.
Well, I mean, it's clear that your commission members did a lot of work, and this package is terrific, but I have a million questions. As you might imagine, you guys were working on this for 8 months, but we got this Friday. So I actually think I need to write down my questions, to organize them, and I also think it needs to go to the town attorney. So I think the other question I have just off the bat is why now? Why does everyone want to do this? Because this is the first time I've been a selectman in 10 years. To me, so maybe you could preference why we're doing this.
Sure. Well, this is not the first time it's come to the Selectmen.
To this
board right
yes.
here, but it has come to the previous Board of Selectmen on several occasions. And with each change in
composition.
Yeah, with composition in Selectmen and also in resident trooper, there's always been different thoughts on the subject, and yes and no, and maybe not. Trooper Weber believes that this can be a very effective program. It's a very effective program and works quite well in Old Saybrook. And we believe that it can work quite well here in the town of Old Lyme. The other thing too is there are other areas in the town of Old Lyme that might be appropriate for this too. We have a population in the Soundview area that is getting a little older. And some people just can't make it down to the beach, or some people can't make it down to the Taquitos or to Carousel Shop or to Kokomo's or Pavilion, and it would be nice to give them that opportunity. It's certainly a resort type of thing. We're not kind of jumping into something that's not a resort type of thing. It's certainly more of a resort type of a program. And like I said, other towns do it quite well and quite effectively. Trooper Weber and the police that we talked to are all in favor for it. They have no problem. They did say they will be very vigilant in making sure that the program does work as we described. And, you know, if there's somebody that's driving it illegally, it will get ticketed and or towed. Just like a vehicle. Just like any other vehicle. So we've had a number of requests over the years for the golf carts in the Soundview area, just as they have them in Old Colony in Miami and Hawks Nest and Old Shores. And now's a good opportunity to do it. Last year we did put it into place on a temporary basis because of that it wasn't anything we did. We did allow at least one golf cart to operate in the area to shuttle some people back and forth from parking lots because of the restricted parking lot situation. And that worked out quite well. So that's why I figured we would put this into a plan that actually is according to the statute. Have some rules and regulations.
That makes sense. That's helpful. Thank you, Frank. I think my other big question, besides all the numerous little ones, is the fees, the collection of the fees and how they come into the town and what they're, I mean, do they go into the general fund? I saw somewhere that thought they should just go to Soundview improvements. You know.
Well, obviously, commission would like to somehow earmark some of those fees for improvements in Soundview. They could go to the town, obviously, but just keep track of what it is, and hopefully, over the course of time, we can utilize some of those funds for improvements. It really doesn't make one way or another. It does make a lot of difference one way or another because we submit our budget, and you guys either approve it or mark it out one way or another. I think that if it's something that's going to take some time and effort to do, maybe it would be good for us to put a few dollars aside for some additional improvements if we can. Maybe you don't feel it's that, significant, and it may not be that significant.
I just wanted the audit trail to be correct, and I want.
You could have a line item for golf cart.
Line item, whatever. But
well, it was pretty clear. It was pretty clear in the registration fee that they make the check out to the town of line.
But if the determination is made that this should go for improvements in Soundview, I personally wouldn't have any problem with that as long as it's a line item.
It's going to be small money, really.
It's really just small. It might end up being signage or something.
It still has to be on the budget. It still has to be tracked.
We've got a tremendous budget director here in town.
We do.
No
but
problem.
she probably needs to review this too, as well as our town attorney.
But we just, the bookkeeping on the Soundview designees part would be the collection of fees, making sure that we come in and the checks made payable properly.
You won't take cash; it'll just be checks.
We could take cash, and we're going to prefer checks. I would kind of like not to get into the cash situation, but that may be. We did put down cash as being an option. But once again, once you issue the plate, you issue a number, you can have a fee that goes along with the plate and number. So.
Yeah, and I would think the audit trail, all that would need to come back to finance also.
Both sets would come back. So, once we establish the list, we have the fees, who gets registered to, and a big spreadsheet. The spreadsheet goes to maintained by us. In the meantime, it would be also part of the police department, and then a summary of who got what, and would go to the town along with the funds. We're not in the business of banking money, so that's the town's job. That's the town's job. So.
All right. Do we want to show this to? You could blow this by the attorney just to make sure they don't see anything glaring here. And but I suppose there's this has to happen fairly quickly, otherwise it'll be Memorial Day and beyond.
Yeah. With hope we would get this thing, refined if we need to make some revisions.
But just in broad strokes, how do you feel about the program, regardless of the minutia?
Well, I don't have a problem with it. It seems fine.
My only worry is liability. Make sure, I'd like to see the paperwork involved on the on far as that goes. And I think if the town attorney's on board and if Nicole is on board and happy with how we're dealing with cash and the system there, I don't have any problem with golf carts. On Soundview, one question I will put on my written comments is, I don't know what your jurisdiction is. I know in the zoning regs, what they call it, the Soundview District, and I know we have a map, the Soundview Commission. In the back is over, there's a map of the streets you guys advise us on. Is that the jurisdiction?
That was jurisdiction, yeah,
okay.
That's when we first established that.
Okay.
Yeah, with Soundview Avenue, we really need to somehow or other eventually establish the name of that chunk of the street there. Technically, at Soundview Avenue, people call it Old Colony Extension.
Yeah. Because it's a little different than the Soundview District.
Well, you got to understand that Soundview jurisdiction has 3 zoning districts.
Okay.
Okay, we have an R10 zoning district, which is Swan Avenue and Portland Avenue, and a section of the extensions. We have a Soundview Village District, which goes from which goes from Bocce Lane to Pond Road on Hartford Avenue only. That's Soundview Village District, and then we have a C10 zone, which is Shore Road from Teddy's to the police station. So we have zoning districts and we have Soundview jurisdiction districts. They're separate things. But in the Soundview, believe it or not, the Soundview jurisdiction, this little tiny spot of land here in the whole line, we have 3 zoning districts.
Yeah.
And it does make it for kind of complicated things sometimes.
So that should probably be in the packet of a copy.
I don't think we ought to put down zoning districts here.
No, it's on the, it shows
Find the jurisdiction.
it has it all up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's back there.
So I believe that's already been defined under the Soundview Article 9, I think it is, of the town ordinances, which established the Soundview Commission. I think we've already established the jurisdiction.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't want to keep reinventing the wheel.
Is Pond ours? I thought Miami's
No.
Pond.
Pardon me?
Pond Road is Miami's road, right?
Pond Road belongs to Miami, but Soundview's got, the Autonomous Line has, what's the word I'm looking for?
Right.
Reciprocal agreement, right of use
Okay.
from Pond Road, from Hartford Avenue to Portland. So we have right of use for that, but the road itself doesn't belong to Miami.
Yeah, well, that was one of my questions too. I'll write them all out.
But, and then the extensions and so on and so forth. So assuming that the lawyers put their approval or make whatever tweaks on this thing, this could be something that would be approved by the selectmen. I need to know because people are asking on a day-to-day basis about, do I buy a golf cart or don't I buy a golf cart? So,
I mean, if we didn't have this a couple months ago, we probably have had our answer by now. But
well, it's been, there's been a lot of work gone into this thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should feel that our due diligence needs to be.
No,
Okay.
I understand it completely.
Okay.
I understand it completely.
Okay.
But we have a sense that, that we can move forward on things as long as we refine it from a legal and,
I wouldn't want someone to be responsible buying a golf cart thinking they were going to get this.
Pardon me?
I wouldn't want to be responsible for someone that went out and purchased a golf cart today because you got an indication. I don't want that on my conscience.
What I'm saying is that
okay.
we met today, and there's a sense that it would be acceptable with the proper changes, if there are any changes required.
So, seemingly.
So next, we think we could get this to the attorney.
Well, I could shoot it up to the attorney tomorrow and then have a read through it. And that would be the primary thing. I think the finance shouldn't be too difficult, but
Finance, I think we're talking 10
police would be the
transactions at most, really.
police would play an integral role here. So,
And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them over the weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
good. Thank you, Frank.
I'll say it. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
quite all right. All right. Next item is the town budget vote, which will be on the 17th of May at 7:30, likely in the middle school. And the school budget referendum will be tomorrow at the middle school gymnasium from noon until 8 p.m. Next item we'll move to new business, and the thing we want to discuss here is the changing the town's email service from First Class to Outlook. There is general dissatisfaction with the current email service, and compounding that, as I understand it, the email service through First Class will actually cease to operate in the fall. So we need to move with speed away from it. Michael, yeah, please do. I think Michael Ryder is the treasurer, and he's in the Information Technology Committee. We discussed the dollars and cents, and if I'm correct, it's about $17,000 to do the total migration.
Yeah, that's the estimate, 17. It's $3,000 for use of all the software and tools to do the migration, and the rest is the labor estimate for running it through the migration, getting it on the right server, and then helping the people in the town get their home computers migrated over.
Okay, and I learned from Nicole that even though we could start things ahead of time, if we give the word to go, it's tantamount to doing it in this fiscal year. So we probably need to have a Board of Finance appropriation to get this going.
We have two options, right? Because it's assuming that next year's budget gets approved and that all goes smoothly, it's in next year's fiscal budget because it was something we were planning to do anyway. But the concern is that the First Class system we use right now is going to be discontinued in September, and CTCom, the IT group we work with, the computer group we work with, think it's about a 2-month effort to do the migration. So July, August, right now you're pushing into September when it's going to be discontinued, and they've never migrated from First Class before, so I'd like to give them, even if we can get them a month buffer. So talking with Nicole, there's two options for starting it now. The first option is that we spend money out of the general fund, and then in the next fiscal year we use the budget. We use what's already in the budget to pay the general fund back. So it's just a way of accounting that works out. The other option is, like you said, we just go to the Board of Finance and ask for $17K to be appropriated for the activity.
Right, yeah. Well, the Board of Finance will be meeting on the 17th if the appropriation is the desired way to go. But they need to weigh in on this either way, I suppose. I can't see that. We could endorse it, but they would have to make a motion themselves.
Yeah, with both of them, we need their approval, right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Right.
Additional appropriation, absolutely.
Additional appropriation, absolutely. The other one, I wasn't.
Not really, but I would want to do it without.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd feel comfortable having them totally involved, and they're meeting in a very short time. The 17th. So it's when the budget meeting occurs, the public part ends, and then they meet as the Board of Finance.
No, I forgot about that meeting. Yeah. Because I know that they have a month where they take off, but I forgot they have that extra meeting after the meeting. So, okay.
We could write up something and send it out to the members so that they they'd have time to
send it out, Nicole or whoever.
Yeah. So with the appropriation, we'd spend it this year, and then we would just underspend it next year, so it'd be almost like a wash. I guess while we do have money in an IT fund, I guess Nicole, you had indicated we don't want to necessarily drain that. would be better just to appropriate the whole thing.
Well, we also don't have the full 17K in the entity fund, so we probably would spend more than what we have before the end of the fiscal year anyway.
Right, but I mean, one could say, well, we use the IT money and then appropriate instead of 17, a lesser number, but if we just do the 17, it's within their authority anyway.
Yeah, it is.
And it's the same net result. Yeah. So, do the selectmen?
I can't wait. Cannot wait to have this email situation resolved. It'll be great, and thank you guys for working so hard on this.
It's definitely needed.
Even whatever company owns First Class, they don't use First Class.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Are they going away because
They're already on that. They have one person in the company who knows how to use First Class. So we already had a risk that if that person was on vacation when we had an issue, that we'd have to wait for that person to come back from vacation to fix it.
But it's going away because it's such a bad product, right?
Yes.
So.
For free.
Do we want more detail on this, or can we urge the Board of Finance to appropriate the $17,000, right, to do this migration in full, and then next year, it'll balance out because there has been funds allocated for this for next year.
I'd say we'd say tell the Board of Finance that we, recommend this.
Yeah.
For them to find the money.
So I'll make a motion that this Board of Selectmen recommends that they appropriate $17,000 to pay for the migration from email First Class to Outlook as soon as possible.
Okay, we have a motion. Mr. Kerr, you second?
I second.
Any other discussion on it? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Well, sorry to have such a brief session so late in the game, but okay. We got a communication from the Department of Health, and it says that on behalf of the Connecticut Department of Health and the American Heart Association, congratulations to your community for having met the renewal requirements of a designation as heart-safe community. This 3-year redesignation, effective March 31, 2021, recognizes your community's continued commitment to provide improved cardiac response and care to residents of your community utilizing the chain of survival of early 911 access, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, defibrillation, and advanced care. We commend you on your efforts to continue to save lives and improve the health of your community. And they provided us this very nice certificate. And I must say that Doug LaPresti and Colleen Atkinson have worked for years on getting getting Old Lyme as a heart-safe community. They actually put on the teaching seminars to the high school students, to town hall staff, and a number of other communities. They have worked to have AED devices, the paddles, to be placed in restaurants, the senior center, the town hall, country club, a variety of places where people might have an incident, and those who are trained in CPR, if they know that machine is there, they could have that to help them in their resuscitation efforts. But I think it's remarkable that they've gone into the high school and have offered classes to the students there, and that's really great because something could happen at home, and if a young person is available and knows what they're doing, they could save a life at home, and it sticks with them for the rest of their life. So it's well worthwhile. The course, each person who takes the course gets a certification for a year, and it's a very interesting thing. And they show you not only how to do. They have these mannequins, and they show you how to work an adult, but they also talk about babies. And so it's I've gone through it. Have you gone through it? You've gone through it? No? Okay. So it's well worthwhile, and we congratulate them and their business, and they've really moved it very nicely for us, and we thank them. So I guess at this point we will unmute, if I'm lucky here, and ask for public comment.
All participants are being asked to unmute themselves.
Are there members of the public on the phone that would like to make a public comment?
Yes. Keith Zarnicki, 8 Duck River Lane, Old Lyme.
Say again, please.
Keith Zarnicki, 8
Okay.
Duck River Lane, Old Lyme, Connecticut.
Hi, Keith. How are you?
Good. How are you, Tim?
Thank you. Well, yes.
Good. So first, since I've been given the opportunity, I'd like to first thank you, Tim, our first selectman, and your office staff for your efforts at the helm during the last year of what has been a true healthcare crisis, the COVID pandemic. I think back in mid-April, WFSB also acknowledged the town efforts of being one of the first in Connecticut to have 75% vaccinated. So kudos to you and your office staff again. I think that was a great achievement during what was a true health crisis.
Certainly more than just a few.
My comments tonight are. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it's a big group of people that made it work. So we're pleased, and we congratulate the community. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. A few comments. My frustration of recent findings and not being able with business to participate directly, but having the opportunity posted, I felt I would take a moment of everybody's time, and a few comments on the racism resolution. And with that, I offer this. The last time I looked up the healthcare crisis, it was defined as an emergency need for medical services to respond to a disaster or significant outbreak of an infectious disease, bioterrorist type attack, or other medical issue. Clearly, the pandemic, again, was a true healthcare crisis which had outbreaks of an infectious disease, which I think brings some clarity to the definition. The fact that our select woman, while serving in her position as a town representative, from what I've read, is now attempting to declare racism as a public health care crisis does not, in fact, that to me, in fact, makes her a racist claim. That's a racist claim, claiming it a health crisis. It is not the definition. That's being declared, and I think it's unfair and unjust, and not, in fact, it's folks like that who claim racism, who many believe in town are, in fact, the real racists, inciting violence with undue rhetoric. Our selectwoman is obviously out of touch with locals who, in my 25 years as a resident, have shown to be very welcoming, caring, and giving individuals. Not everyone lives in a private neighborhood, belongs to a private beach club with a spouse working for Big Pharma. We think some might refer to that as the white guilt privilege coming out, and I feel pretty lucky to have my freedom to speak this. A word of advice: if you sincerely believe in your claim, why not move to one of the many inner cities to make a real impact? Living and working day to day with the minority community like many of us do every day. I myself happen to do it in all the cities throughout the state. And we ought to stop with the nonsense and look at collective ways to work with the good we have instead of inciting negative violence. I'll end with one final note and one final question. If you look at our first selectman sitting next to you, I believe Tim's son-in-law is a black man. Where's the merit of your claim now? And who's the racist?
Is there another individual on the phone who would like to make a public comment?
Yes, there is. My name is Pete. Can you hear me?
Your name again?
My name is Peter Friel.
I didn't get...
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, how do you spell the last name? Peter?
Sure. Friel.
Okay. Go ahead.
And, yep, I live at 7 Manswood Road, Old Lyme, Connecticut. And I'd like to follow up on the comments that were just brought up by Mr. Zarnecki on the same subject. I'll keep my comments pretty succinct and short, but I appreciate the time you're giving me, and I do think it's important that people hear this. So there's no denying that we live in one of the most inclusive and accepting communities. The atmosphere is one of warmth and kindness with endless generosity. After all, that's why people come here to begin with. Now I'm going to ask you to remember, if you sign this document, you can never go back. You would be admitting that we are all racist and hate everyone else because of our white privilege. I don't know of a single person in our town, or surrounding towns for that matter, that acts or thinks the way we have been portrayed in this nonsensical letter. Please don't bend to this obscene pressure. And please don't also sign this resolution. I love this town, I love this community, and there's no other place I'd rather raise my family. Thank you again for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the phone who would like to have a public comment?
Hi, this is Kim Thompson calling from Old Lyme. I would like to make public comment.
Could you state your name again, please?
Kim Thompson.
Okay.
I would like to make public comment in support of all of Mary Jo's extensive efforts to make sure that Old Lyme is making the right moves in ensuring that our policies are open and supportive. I believe that this resolution that she's presenting presents Old Lyme as, as not racist, but as recognizing that this is a national issue that has been recognized by accredited public health institutions, and that in many, many communities in the state of Connecticut, it is a crisis, and that the resolution is resolving that Old Lyme will ensure that policies moving forward do nothing to perpetuate that crisis, and to examine any rules we have on the books that may be contributing factors. So I would like to express strong support for all of Mary Jo's efforts, and extreme disappointment that this has was not a simple issue to just acknowledge that this is a public health crisis and we should not ignore that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the phone would like to make a public comment?
Hi, this is Anna Ryder. I'd like to make a comment.
Very well.
I would also like to stand in support of everything Mary Jo has been trying to do with this resolution. I think that it's extremely short-sighted of our leaders in our town not to acknowledge this as a situation that's been going on for decades. And yes, I've seen people say that it's just being acknowledged now, and that's how change happens. And I think that this town likes to be known as leaders of movements and change, and it's one of the reasons why people love to live here, because our leaders do recognize when things are important. And I think this is a very important topic, and it's not saying that anyone specifically or that the town as a whole has intentionally done anything to be racist or to keep racism going in any way. It's just saying that going forward, we will make sure that we are not perpetuating this systemic problem, and that we are going to look for ways to make sure that our town is a desirable place to live for everyone. And I applaud Mary Jo for continuing to bring this up in the face of people who have not been acknowledging her. And I think it's really important that everyone is acknowledged and is heard. And I second everything that Kim Thompson said. She said it very eloquently. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else like to say something? Well, we're not getting off the phone. All right. Thank you. We will.
All participants have been muted.
Do you wish to make a public comment?
Yeah.
Dmitry Tolchinsky?
Yeah, you know how to spell my name.
Oh, yes.
All right.
You want to put the mic over there, maybe? Yeah.
I came to this town in 1984. I purchased property. And in 1988...
Maybe, if you would mind just...
In
Yeah.
1988, I opened online hardware store. Of course, sign was put as a hardware store, online hardware store. And also it was permitted by the state of Connecticut, Department of Transportation. And the sign was put on a corner where Swan Avenue crossing on a shore. And there was an island put. And this island was nuisance because it was blocking the parking spaces. I have 5 of them. And I have 4 regular and 1 is handicap parking. When people were coming and the parking spaces were occupied at 1, 2, 3, and 4, the handicap parking space, people couldn't get to it because it was just tough, especially when people were coming from east going to west on Route 156, which is Shore Road in the line. They got to make a right turn to the parking against parking number 1 and going right and make a left turn to handicap parking. This was not possible to do, and people were just going over the island to get to the handicap parking. So now we have a construction going on, which we are putting sidewalk along Shore Road from Crossroad to the police station. And this island was also put on a drawing coming closer to the building, 12 feet, which is going to make the situation even worse. Also, this new island will have a curve and people will not be able to even cross it coming to the handicap parking. So, this situation will bring to the point that it would be not possible to use my parking 5 spots on a property in front. So what I'm asking, I wrote a letter and you have it. I'm asking not to consider to putting this island. I have 60 feet of frontage and 5 parking spaces. Island will block access to the parking spaces. What I'm asking is to get those designers who never shown up to talk to us. My sign only going to be removed. All other signs are staying away from the Shore Road. Those people are not going to be affected. They saw that my sign is so close to the road, and they never came, those designers, and never talked to me. So I think it was a big mistake on their side. And I would like you to help me to have my property after the beautiful sidewalk will be put, and beautify, I'm going to put new paving at that time on my property too. So I will beautify my property. But now the situation is it's on a drawing, and it's very difficult to take this out of the drawing, I understand. But it will be even more difficult when my parking will be blocked and I would complain about it. I don't want to do this situation. So please help me out. This is what I'm asking. You're three good people. You know there was a hardware store before, and you know that I'm still working, I'm still having business. I'm 81 now. So I would like you to help me. That's all I can tell you. Situation about your meeting today, I think you all guys did a good job, and I salute you guys. So please do help me. That's all I can tell you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, the next category is other business. I received a communication from Nicole having to do with the auditing firm of the town. It was known as Blum Shapiro, but the name has changed now to Clifton, Larson, and Allen, same people, same auditor out of West Hartford. She sent an email that quote, being late in the game to get proposals, you would need to get the Board of Selectmen to approve waiving the bid requirement, which is the group between $25,000 and $50,000. The fee last year was $35,000. This coming year, it's just under $37,500. So the Board of Finance, this is their purview, but it's incumbent upon us to do the bid policy. And so I think we would be wise to, in talking with Dave Kelsey at the Board of Finance and with Nicole, I think we have good satisfaction with the firm that does the audit, but we would need to waive the bid requirement that would say we're supposed to get other quotes. So that's what is at hand. Yes, we do. Yeah, it would be to waive the bid requirement for the town auditor for the fiscal 22 audit.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So other business from the selectmen.
I have none.
Couple things. The Tantamahog letter that was in development at our last meeting, where are we with that?
It went out to Mr. Frampton, talking about the 2 points. It said that we're going to have Ed and Dante go up there and look at the parking near the gate to make sure it's proper for vehicles, maybe two vehicles, to park in that location. I said we need to make sure that there's enough space so that you don't get too close to that sudden drop-off down toward the stream. Do we need to put a rock there or anything to make sure nobody, being inattentive, would back in there and go down the hill? And I just indicated that just confirmed that we won't be putting the closing time on any signage, and that we would then be designing the parking area down by the ice house talking about placing the rock that would block off vehicle traffic to the trail that goes down to the water, and basically implement what's been discussed at Harbor Management and here at the Board of Selectmen. So I've got to get Ed to go down there and have a look, and I think there'd be if they park parallel to the road coming in, I think, but there is a steep decline there, so I think we need to just examine that. Make sure the soil's firm enough too.
Thank you. I guess the only thing I want to address is, again, the resolution. Again, I'm surprised at the vehement responses that we heard tonight, the first two callers. But by far, majority of people have been in support of the resolution. So the personal attacks on me doesn't make this issue go away. The resolution is just to lay out how our government leadership at the Board of Selectmen will undertake to assure that we practice in this lovely town we all love, whether we live in a private subdivision, whether I have a husband that provides life-saving drugs to the callers' families, and I'm very proud of him. And how we just maintain an anti-racist policy in this town to assure that everybody in this town has equity and quality of life, which certainly is a health statement, continues to be something we're all proud of. And the real meat of the resolution, which doesn't say that we're racist, because I don't believe that Orion people are racist in Orion, but it just asserts that we're going to continue the progress to make sure that the equity and justice-oriented activities and policies in town. And if we have that already, there should be a piece of cake that will promote equity through all our policies, that will collect the data to show that, again, as one of the callers said, we'll be leaders in that regard. To advocate for policies not only in our town but in our neighboring town. We're not an island. To reach out, to share our quality of life with others, to solidify those alliances, and to just periodically review where we're at and where we're going forward. There's nothing in here that says mentions violence. The hatred has no place at this table and in this town. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, 6:15. Motion to adjourn, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I was asked by one of the other towns about